My guest today is Patrick Young. Patrick is the head of ecosystem at Galxe and Gravity, onboarding the world to Web3. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, please appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it as well. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, Patrick. It would be super cool if you could please introduce yourself. Would love to hear, just some of your personal and professional backstory. What have you been doing in the lead up to joining the team at Galxe?
Yeah, certainly. So, like you mentioned, head of ecosystem at Galxe, Gravity, and GDAO for that matter as well. And really, what I focus on here at Galxe is leading our team in establishing strategic partnerships with key industry leaders, up and coming projects, all of which with the intention of leveraging our platform of services to enable that next wave of mass adoption for Web3. So, creating tooling in partnership with these projects that helps facilitate that onboarding process for everyone to get basically involved in these ecosystems, these communities, and so on. I think for me, my personal curiosity for Web3 honestly started in probably 2015, 2016, really by early college years when I came across how blockchain could be used for digital identity in the digital identity space. And effectively, how could we take this world in which data is retained and centralized within a select number of players and return that, effectively turn that ownership back to the end users at that point. And then within that, how could we leverage blockchain technology and ZK technology on top of that to do things like sharing, partial information to different parties on a per need basis. So if there's specific credentials that you have, specific criteria that a certain vendor might have, not sharing the entire profile that you have as an individual when it's not necessarily, but just sharing what is the critical information for that given interaction. In terms of, from there, it was a pretty big snowball moment for me. I think a lot of us have probably had that where you just go head over heels for this space. And that was really the same case for me. So I had an opportunity to start a blockchain organization, continued my involvement across the space in a variety of different areas of the ecosystem. And from there and after graduation, had an opportunity to start a treasury management solution that was focused on outfitting corporates, enterprise, and institutions with treasury management solutions so that they could operate in the world of digital assets. And then most recently, before Galxe, had an opportunity to work with Chainlink Labs, where most recently I led the Web3 commercial business. So that's everything that relates to public blockchain interactions as the head of Web3 sales. And that effectively takes me to Galxe here today.
Very nice, Patrick. And look, just briefly on Chainlink. Yeah, I used to talk to, I think, Chris at Chainlink for quite a while. I even had Sergey. Sergey's been on the podcast. He came on, maybe 3 times. It's been a little while, but he was one of the early guests that helped get the podcast going. He's obviously a fascinating character.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's great to see how far that team has come in the role that they're playing today. I think really what they've done is push the industry to its limits in terms of, or at least continue to push the industry forward, I should say, in the way that not only we can operate within a decentralized or Web3 core Web3 format, but also how we interact with institutions, bridge into traditional finance. You even see that with Sergey being, and Chris for that matter, being very active on Capitol Hill these days. So certainly one of those pioneers for the space, and just happy to be in similar company, be on this podcast. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Galxe then. So maybe just to begin with, just give us the kind of the high level vision, the high level summary. Galxe, Gravity. Obviously, the intention is Web3 and onboarding the next wave of users, whether that's millions or billions. Give us the high level
Certainly.
highlights, Patrick.
Absolutely. I mean, our space has come a long way, but we definitely have our eyes set on that B number. So we're looking to onboard certainly the next billion users. And, really what Galxe is as a platform, it's a Web3 services platform itself that is geared towards marketing, ecosystem development, growth, and maintenance. So effectively, it's this end-to-end solution for teams that want to come work with us. We can outfit them with all of the necessary tools across, questing, incentivization, identity management. So a nice roundabout to my initial catalyst joining the space. It's been very exciting to be working on the identity problem once again. But identity management, modular AI, asset distribution, which I might have talked a little bit about, really this end-to-end collective platform for what's required from a project's perspective to go from 0 to 100. And then even from there, how do you continue your growth journey? I think for us, we originally set out with the mission of building at its outset a tool for questing, which we're probably most well known for. And that was really born out of the necessity for a standardized infrastructure for that type of engagement. So points accumulation, tracking of on and off chain activities. And we were in a position to do so and really led that charge into creating that type of engagement style at scale for the broader ecosystem to take advantage of. And really from there, it kind of snowballed into this broad suite of solutions that we've developed that's really trying to be that one-stop shop for those teams to get outfitted with everything that they need to satisfy ecosystem growth and maintenance. And it also serves a similar purpose from an end consumer perspective, where people can come to Galxe and they can get introduced to these new technologies, these new projects, the broader ecosystem at large, and be an active participant, be a community member, and take advantage of the value that this space effectively has to offer throughout our interface as that one-stop shop in that regard as well. In terms of Gravity, I think Gravity is an interesting conversation as well. Gravity is our blockchain that we've deployed. So we currently have our alpha mainnet out today, which is really the first iteration of a longer term strategy in terms of what we want to do on the blockchain infrastructure level. But we really built that on basis of two key observations. One is, as we started to build out this framework and this interface for questing and incentive distribution, or incentivization, I should say, I mean, you're dealing with points, you're dealing with asset distribution, you're dealing with monetary considerations. And for us, it was critical that we bring as much of that activity on chain as possible, especially as we branched into different areas of our business today, like digital identity management. And, really it was an observation that for where the space was going and what both the end users and the partners that we worked with required, it was to operate in a completely trustless on-chain environment. So that was got to be the first major catalyst for us to deploy Gravity at the outset. The second was, as we started to operate across these many different ecosystems, we're sitting around 70 blockchain deployments today. So pretty wide net that we've cast, certainly, and continue to expand relatively rapidly. But the second was, as we go through all of these different chain integrations that we worked through, we started to realize that creating a seamless experience for the end user to monitor, to track the incentives, the interactions across any given environment, it was very important for us to have a central hub that we could operate out of, where all of that activity could be logged on chain, could be facilitated on a blockchain environment. And many of the existing solutions just weren't as well positioned for us. So we took somewhat of an app chain approach where we deployed Gravity that effectively facilitates Galxe in its entirety. And it's part of the reason why Gravity itself in its alpha mainnet version is one of the top 10 chains by active wallet addresses, transaction count, and similar. And actually, I think the youngest on the list of the top 10 at that. But it's primarily powering the Gravity suite of solutions.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you, Patrick. You so with the applications or products, I don't know how you describe them on Galxe. So you said, I believe, that you're kind of known for the questing one, and I can see there's a few other there. Others, there's Quest, there's Score, Passport, Compass, and Identity Protocol. So yeah, the kind of and something called Alva. So maybe you can tell us what that is. But yeah, obviously these are pain points, solutions to be had in Web3. So just run us through those and yeah, kind of make the case for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, Galxe Quest is probably what we're most well known for. It's really the initial product that we put in market and the initial solution in the market for how you manage incentivization and questing experiences at scale for your user base. So you want to have somebody come in, get educated about a given ecosystem, a given project, start to familiarize yourselves, interact both in an off-chain and on-chain environment. Quest is that solution. So Quest has been certainly well adopted across the broader ecosystem. We've had about 6,500 partners that have come in and have used Galxe Quest. And those quests that they have subsequently launched have been completed over 1.1 billion times to date. So that number is maybe a little bit closer to 1.2 at this point today. In any case, that's kind of the cornerstone of what we started to build with the Galxe platform itself. Now, I mentioned a couple others there, such as Galxe Passport and Galxe Score. Those are two of our identity-based products that are underpinned by the Galxe Identity Protocol. So Galxe Passport is a full KYC-based solution where you can go in as a user, you can mint your Galxe Passport, and it serves as that identification, that KYC identification for you as you operate on chain. And now that can be used in a variety of different ways. That can be used both within the questing, within the airdrop distribution, within the incentive distribution framework itself that lives within Galxe. But it could also serve additional utility outside of the confines of the Galxe ecosystem, where teams will use that as maybe gating mechanisms or to target specific users, or, again, like a gating mechanism to ensure that only KYC users are accessing a specific part or application or product of a given application itself in the broader ecosystem. Now, the Galxe Score is another interesting one, given that Galxe Score effectively operates as your on-chain credit score or your on-chain reputation. So what that effectively does is take into consideration all of your on-chain activity. So things like NFT collections, asset movements, history of the wallet itself, as well as your off-chain components like social profiles, effectively what we would call fame. How active are you on those profiles, things of that nature. And what that effectively establishes is what is your likelihood of being a human managing that individual wallet versus, an offset or an offshoot of somebody else's wallet, let's say. And so both of those can be used in very similar interchangeable ways within the Galxe ecosystem and broadly speaking. But they've been pretty well adopted on both fronts, with Galxe Passport having over 1 million users that have KYC'd today, and then Galxe Score having about 500,000 users that have gone through the score minting process itself. I think some of the other ones that are probably interesting among many other areas that we're involved in as a team would probably be Galxe EarnDrop. EarnDrop is one of our more recent deployments from a product perspective. And it's really with that intention of starting to complete that life cycle from a marketing perspective and from an ecosystem growth standpoint, which is an airdrop distribution tool. So effectively automates and removes a lot of the complexity, the risk, the redundancy that might exist within that process as a project. So being an out-of-the-box solution for teams to facilitate things like TGEs, airdrops, and other types of asset distribution going forward for community, incentives, rewards, things of that nature. And then Alva, last one, just to touch on that one quick, is part of the AI suite that we offer as well. So Alva is a AI co-pilot solution that is really modeled and geared for Web3 people that are becoming involved in Web3 or even Web3 natives, where it helps them with quantitative trading. It helps them with research on the space, what's happening in the ecosystem, identifying opportunities in the ecosystem, and so on. So it's really just this AI tool that's modeled around your engagement within the Web3 space. So that's a kind of quick rundown of each, but I'm sure we could have a longer conversation about each. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, there's some fascinating solutions there, and great to see just how widely adopted they already have been by various projects and protocols. With Alva, I guess I'm sure it's early days there with the AI co-pilot, but that's fascinating, and potentially that could be of very good use to people as it develops. How do you see that evolving as the different AI systems become ever more efficient, capable, and reliable, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of isolate it into two different conversations. One is Alva in its current state as a solution for both individuals and businesses, and then AI in general and the impact that it has on our business, which I think is an interesting topic nonetheless, or itself. Now, for Alva in its current state, the way in which we operate with teams and individuals is it can actually be used for both. And what I mean by that is we'll work with, or it's addressable for the individual end consumer in the case that they're looking for that type of tooling. They want to have that sort of added intelligence layer as they go throughout their day-to-day interactions across Web3, again, whether that be research or helping them within a trading environment as well. And then from a business's perspective, we actually see a lot of teams adopt that as a way of helping to fuel some of their internal intelligence. So, I mean, many teams do this. Our team does this as well, where you can get regular downloads on exactly what's happening across the ecosystem, things to be aware of, alerts, so on and so forth, to really make sure that you're always operating on the basis of having this added layer for research and intelligence gathering that sits and pairs with your business. Now, on the general AI side of things, I think that's where things get very, very interesting. Now, given that I think you see in the space today a lot of work that's being done around, KOLs, and then some KOLs that are AI agents, and then on top of that, we work in the business of, helping to support and sustain ecosystem growth. There's a lot of considerations that are top of mind, not too many that I can get very deep on, but how do you leverage those type of AI agent technologies to help fulfill some of those critical functions around maintaining and engaging within your community on a regular basis, helping to grow attention and facilitate discussion around a specific project or initiative that's top of mind. I think that's going to be more of a consideration for us on how do we leverage that and package that in a way that is easily accessible, easily understood across the broader ecosystem and pairs well with our platform.
Yeah, very nice. Very sensibly said. Thank you, Patrick. G is the token, the native token on Gravity, and well, for the Galxe ecosystem. Just talk us through, any points of a note in terms of how that token works and what it looks like.
Certainly. So G supports any number of different interactions across both of those environments. So from the perspective of Gravity, it's probably a little bit more straightforward in that it facilitates things like payments, on-chain transactions, serving as the gas token. Really, any native blockchain ecosystem gas token that you could think of, it follows a very similar path on that sense. It also helps empower things like our staking ecosystem. So we have G staking, which helps to support the integrity of the work that we do, the integrity of the chain itself from a security perspective. On top of that, also helps with DAO governance, so voting, how we actually make decisions as an organization, and then actually gives you access to some of the benefits from the ecosystem as well. So we have a lot of partners, for example, that as they're going through things like distributing rewards, they have this nest or this hotbed of dedicated users from the Galxe ecosystem that have gone through and are staking and actively supporting our ecosystem and our security. And they see that as a very ideal audience to start to connect with. And they'll go through a staking program with us where they'll actually handle rewards distributions to that group in particular. You see that with things like Movement right now. Movement is going through that as we speak. So in the next couple of weeks here, we'll have an airdrop to G stakers from the Movement go live in TGE that they had. So that's just one example of many that goes through that ecosystem. And then the last would be Galxe as a suite of solutions. Galxe or G is used in that equation as a utility token to help fuel interactions within the platform. As a project, you'll leverage G to help set up certain services to facilitate certain interactions. And I'd say that's probably the quickest I can make a TLDR on all things G related.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think recently Masari spotlighted you guys as, I think they said that as a leading community building platform for Web3. Always good to get, I guess, outside validation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's exciting to see a lot of that come out because it really is putting context to the work that we're doing in its entirety. And what I mean by that is, what we've tried to develop and we've talked a lot about here is this end-to-end platform, this end-to-end narrative that powers applications from coming out of stealth through their mainnet growth and their continued growth in perpetuity for that matter. And seeing a lot of the teams come out and a lot of these resources that are certainly juggernauts in the space and add that additional validation and really speak to what that vision really entails is certainly something that we appreciate. Absolutely.
I know it's, you're head of ecosystem, I think, Patrick, but I know that part of that is, there's a heavy emphasis on partnerships and, relationship building, I'm sure, which is, it's very much a unique kind of skill set itself. What's your philosophy, if you like, on building relationships and seeking out partnerships, and how do you kind of vet those kind of partnerships? Is it people coming to you? Is it you reaching out to other projects? It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'll kind of address that in two parts. So on the actual forming of the partnerships themselves, or where what our process effectively entails is, we'll certainly see a lot of teams come to us, and then for us, it's a very we operate a self-service platform at the end of the day. Now, that being said, when we see teams come in and they're having high degrees of success, they are doing something new or interesting, it's our responsibility to be very active in approaching those folks and looking to form deeper relationships, deeper strategic partnerships with them to effectively help them grow. And then by extension, us grow. And then also by extension, help onboard that next billion that we're talking about here. The other is certainly this space moves very, very quickly. And we'll see a lot of teams that are coming forward with some cutting edge technologies, some pretty significant efforts in their own right. And we'll be very proactive in reaching out to them and engaging with them at the outset to make sure that we're building those relationships early and often to ensure that we're, helping to support their growth, which again follows that similar path, similar motivation of, collective growth across all of those different parts. In terms of partnership building and how do I approach that fundamentally, I think we operate in a very interesting space, certainly. When I think of partnerships in general, it is going away from as much as possible a transactional relationship, like a client buyer relationship. That tends to, as I would say, stem or limit the capacity for creativity and the depth of the work that we can do together because it's always seen as a very transactional sort of relationship in and of itself. In addition to that, when I was talking about the benefits of this space and the ecosystem we operate, we have a system in which the way in which we can operate with teams, we have very clear incentives that are aligned with their growth. So it becomes a much more collaborative mission on how do we grow as a collective, as opposed to how do I grow and my incentives might not be aligned with yours, my interests might not be aligned with yours as the project or as the consumer for that matter. So for me, it's about evaluating these different relationships and saying, let's try to do something new. If we're going to onboard the next billion people into this space, we need to make sure that we're doing things that are new, that are exciting, that are providing real world value to the folks that are either getting into the space for the first time or have been in the space for a long time. And so that's really the intention around, where you start from the relationship building and the strategic partnership formation itself. And then from there, it's a wonderful thing to have a platform of products that span across a wide array of use cases and product verticals and different stages of their growth. So from there, you can start to get really interesting when it comes to the creativity aspect on how do we leverage these different parts, their different parts of their own journey, and make that as successful as possible. So it's very much more of a creative, consultative process as opposed to a transactional relationship, which I think is, again, one of those things that can often stem the depth of the work that you do with people.
Yeah, it makes very good sense, Patrick. Let's go a bit wider. Let's go a bit more existential, if you like. It's one thing to aim to onboard the next billion users into Web3, but what is the current state of Web3? Does Web3 have a narrative problem at the moment? Is it a reputation problem? Is it just where are we in this cycle problem, or is there no problem and things are just playing out on the kind of timeline that is realistic, and things will just continue? I know these are kind of big questions, Patrick, but just love to get your thoughts and how you guys think about all this.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because maybe a couple different points here. One is the amount of value that's being created out of the ecosystem itself, not only within the confines of Web3 itself, but also bridging into those traditional markets, building in from a DeFi or a financial standpoint, building into traditional finance, building into capital markets. We talked about the work that's being done with Chainlink and Sergey and the team over there. I think that's a great example of that continued rapid growth that we're seeing, regardless of market fluctuations, things that are happening on a day-over-day basis. If you take that, zoomed out approach, you really see this exponential growth in the amount of adoption from that Web2 audience, primarily in the traditional finance space. I think the other piece that we especially pay attention to or deeply involved in on top of that is, in a general sense, how do you start to build the relationships and get more inclusion from the Web2 or traditional players, that many of which actually have a very dedicated focus of building into the space more so than they ever have before, whether that be on the branding side or looking to take advantage of certain aspects of the industry or liquidity or whatever it may be. How do we make sure that we can help bring them on, get them injected, start to basically play matchmaker with what exists in Web3, and all of which can be underpinned by the work that we do to help connect the dots from a consumer's perspective or from the end user standpoint. So I think those are things at a high level, movement standpoint where I would say there is nothing but continued progression of adoption and growth and utility that's coming out of this space that really is just continued to hockey stick for, the years that we've all probably been involved in the space and have been able to see. I think there's probably short-term distractions in terms of like meme coins versus political meme coins versus stuff that are happening as scams. You have the collapse of certain things, the growth of other things. There's always going to be distractions. But again, you take that 50,000 foot view and you really do see that all of the right people are in the right rooms, making this space happen, making things move forward and bridging the gap between the traditional world and the Web3 world.
Yes, indeed. Very well said, indeed. Always good to have that 50,000 foot view. Patrick, look, as we start to finish up this part of the podcast, just anything coming up that you guys are working on, any new partnerships, any new products and solutions, anything else that you want to, just kind of bring attention to, please do that. And of course, at the same time, just for people that are interested into diving into more in terms of what you guys are building, what is the best place for them to go and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the latter and then I'll kind of work back from there. So in terms of the best way to get access to some of the stuff that we're working on today, you can go to galxe.com. That is galxe.com. You can also look at us on our social accounts, so things like X at Galxe as well over there. And those are great resources to familiarize yourself. Not only do we have the actual direct access to the applications that we were talking about here, those different user experiences working throughout the different ecosystems, but you also have things like, help articles, things that actually help with the enablement side of the equation, which is certainly very important for us. And we've invested a lot of time and energy into, which is how do you understand the world in which we're all operating in? How do you understand the way these different kind of pieces come together, either as a person that's brand new to the space or somebody that's been operating in the space for a while, but is looking for a deeper involvement across Web3. In terms of things that are top of mind for us and things that are on the horizon, I'd say there's probably a couple to be aware of and I want to keep an eye on. One is, we're doing a lot of work around the work that we have on the identity layer. So in particular, things with like Passport, for example, I think the growth of the industry, as we were just referencing, is opening up more and more opportunity for both KYC and non-KYC based identity services, where they'll only continue to play a more critical role in the space going forward. Just given that you're going to see more sophistication come in, you're going to see more sophisticated applications, you're going to see different audiences that are supporting those or on the back or the backing these different types of applications, some of which may require KYC or at least a higher degree of transparency or assurances into the legitimacy of an underlying wallet or actor within the space. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things that are on the horizon for everything that we do in relation to Passport in particular, as well as Score for that matter. We also have Gravity in the current state. It's alpha mainnet, which is currently deployed today. We do have an intention of rolling out some more updates on that front, which you can expect around Q3 or Q4 of this year on the L1 release of Gravity L1. So very much so a lot of packed conversation and detail into that we could get into, but in any case, that's going to be a next big milestone for us that people should definitely keep an eye on. And then I'd say, the space is very interesting. And if you're following our socials, if you're involved in the work that we're doing, if you're watching and then taking that next leap into actually working on these different applications through the Galxe ecosystem, you'll see a lot of very interesting things on, the airdrop front that are coming out. I mentioned movement, other questing experiences that are pretty big. We had Sonium, a big campaign with them that just recently completed the Sonium Conquest campaigns. We also have a lot of work coming up with some large players in the AI space that I think people should be very keen on learning more about. And in any case, there's just no shortage of stuff going on. So follow us on the socials, check us out on galxe.com, and stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Patrick. It is time to start to finish up the episode. And we do that, of course, by running you through the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round. Are you up for it?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it, Patrick. I'm just going to run some questions at you. Just want you to give me your kind of hot take style answers. No right or wrong way to do it. Question one for you. Let's see what you have to say. Where would you say, Patrick, that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Yeah, I'd say more on the multi-chain opportunistic. I mean, I think there's no shortage of things that are, there's no shortage of value for Bitcoin, and that'll always be a constant in the space. But a lot more of this utility is coming from some of the flexible frameworks that are coming out. So more multi-chain. Yeah.
Makes sense to me, Patrick. All right. Well, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That there is real world value in crypto today, and there's real world utility. And the biggest challenge is just educating the masses on that.
I love it. All right. Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 years. And crypto is a long time indeed. But, cast your mind forward, anything you like here. I guess, Web3, Galxe, what does it all look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think I can appreciate that perspective. I'd say that this space moves about, what happens in a year in traditional markets happens in about a week in crypto. So things are continuing to move very quick. I would say that more growth in newer technologies like AI. I think that'll be one of the biggest overhauls to what is happening in this space. I think it's one of the biggest opportunities for a blockchain to provide value back to AI. But I think you'll see just a continued growth in how that transforms the way in which we operate. And then long term, I'd say I would expect in 10 years, many of the different types of interactions that we have, at least from a financial perspective, to be based or in part, if not entirely, on blockchain technology.
Very nice. Another way of thinking about this, of course, is a quote by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Patrick, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Yeah, I mean, I reference AI a lot, but I think it's probably one of the better examples. You see different AI agents today that are managing their own portfolios, that are interacting in multi-agent frameworks. That sort of technology and innovation is already here, maybe more so on the KOL front or thought leaders. But again, that technology is already here, and it'll only continue to grow.
Absolutely. All right. It brings us nicely to our final question, Patrick, which is, what is your favorite sci-fi book, film, or TV show?
So right now I would say it's Severance. I think a lot of people might say that too. So Severance is certainly top of mind. I'm always a sucker for Harry Potter, Star Wars, stuff like that. I don't know if Harry Potter necessarily falls into the sci-fi bucket, but I know Star Wars does. So definitely long-time supporter of those.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, good shout with Severance. Yeah, I've watched the first season. Have not started season 2 yet, but very much looking forward to binging season 2 shortly. I wanted to wait till all of the episodes are out, and I think that is pretty much the case now. You've watched season 2, Patrick?
I have, and I envy the position that you're in right now because it's good.
Excellent. Something to look forward to then. I knew that already, I think. All right. This has been excellent. It's been a lot of fun talking to you today, Patrick. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. Just close it out by, again, telling people where they can go to learn all about what you and the team are building at Galxe. And please shout out your own socials, the team socials, anything else you want. Please go for gold.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one resource is galxe.com, Galxe.com. Galxe on X, so at Galxe. And then you can also find me on X as well with Pat K Young, and on X for that matter as well. So that's the short.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate the time.